Hey everybody, Father Jason here. I hope you are having a delightful day. It's a bit on the cloudy and dreary side here in central Ohio, but I'm sure the sun will return at some point in time. Today we were talking about Matthew chapter 12 in our Advent read along. And here we start to see the tensions continuing to rise between Jesus and the religious powers that be. This topic again that we touched on before, it seems to be the central argument is between them is, does the religion exist for the people or the people for the religion? And Jesus falls on the side of the religion for the people. There's this debate about whether to do good on the Sabbath. A very strict Sabbath observance would involve not doing anything. I mean, it would be very much anything that could be considered laborious, anything that was labor or work. And so healing could be in that category, right? But Jesus says that the Sabbath exists for people, right? He says, he gives this examples of if your sheep falls in a pit on the Sabbath, you get the sheep out, right? How much more valuable is a human being than a sheep? So the purpose of the Sabbath is for the people, not the people for the Sabbath. And it's a way of keeping Sabbath observance is good. Let me just say that right now, especially in our society, which is so much go, do. The notion of rest being important is something that we've kind of lost in our culture, and then we should reclaim. Sabbath keeping is a good spiritual practice. Resting is a good spiritual practice. But the Sabbath or Sabbath keeping is not God, right? It's not an idol. It's not something it should not become an ends in and of itself. It is rather a means to an end and should be handled accordingly. Then we get some more arguments between Jesus and the Pharisees and stuff. And then right at the end, this is interesting, beginning with verse 46, while he was still speaking to the crowds, his mother and his brothers were standing outside, wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." But to the one who had told him this, Jesus replied, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." So a couple of things. First, right in that last line, he adds in sister, right? And seeing them as valuable. That's a lifting up of his sisters, or the notion of sisterhood as a highly valued thing, right? Maybe even part of the divine family. Sisterhood is part of the divine family, even, one could say. And we've been talking about this throughout, that Jesus seems to be redefining what the family unit is. Instead of basing it on biology, he's saying whoever does the will of my Father in heaven. Okay? And we haven't gotten the summation of the law yet, but we're going to get that, the summation of the law. I believe we get that in Matthew. We'll see. We know we got it in Luke, right? Last year, but we'll see if we get it in Matthew too, where Jesus says, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. That is what all the law and the prophets hangs on. And so that is the will of God, is that we love each other. And that love is not to be limited by biology. It's not to be limited by who is in our nuclear family. Instead, we are to view the other, everybody, as brother and sister, as family. And in this culture at that time, this is a very radical statement. For him to reject his mother and brothers and say that, to redefine that, he is really radically changing that. And probably that's adding to the tension with the Pharisees as well, and the Sadducees and the religious leaders at the time. And as we know, it gets him into trouble later on. All right, y'all, we are like 3 days away from our first guest, so stay tuned for that. It's coming out on Sunday. So tomorrow we'll hit chapter 13, and if you want to support the channel, you can like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified. Also share this to your social media. That is helpful if you'd like to support this ministry or all of the ministries of St. Patrick's Episcopal Church, please go to pats-dublin.org/give and make a contribution today. And keep reading. And remember, God loves you more than you can possibly imagine.